Proceeding District Court of County of Washington, State of Michigan, is now in session. On those type of business before the court is here, the Honorable Judge J. Cedric Simpson presides.
You may be seated.
Good morning, John.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Wonderful. How are you?
We'll see. I think I'm doing good.
John promises that it'll be a quick hearing.
Yeah, he's done,
On my end, this guy though.
he's done that before.
I'm pretty sure he did mention that last time.
Yeah, he did.
And right away this case sets the tone. A silent defendant, attorneys scrambling, and a judge trying to keep control of the room. That silence isn't just awkward, it's strategic. In court, saying nothing can protect you or make you look guilty in the court of public opinion. First impressions matter, especially when a man's life sentence could be on the table. If you were in that seat, would you speak up or stay silent?
Did.
It was going to be a smooth, quick hearing.
If you take out the parts that I wasn't, the delays not attributable to me, it was relatively quick.
Everything is attributable to you.
Fair enough.
Good morning, Mr. Vincent. How are you, sir?
Back there, talking to Dr. Kaplan, revisiting all the old times we had together back in the 90s. So,
I was 3.
Oh, so
How come everybody laughed?
well, I was,
Emma?
I was 33 then.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, let's lie big.
Yeah, that's it. Bring him out? Yeah, we can bring him out. Court does call the case of the people of the state of Michigan versus Marvin Sullivan.
And Your Honor, good morning. Jonathan Emmons on behalf of the people.
Good morning, Your Honor. Michael Vincent on behalf of Marvin Sullivan.
All right, this is a continuation of the preliminary examination. Are the people ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor. I've got Dr. Kaplan out in the interview room. He's going to be my first witness, and Ms. Washington is here. I just wanted to inquire, her attorney suggested that he was going to be present via Zoom. I just wanted to.
He's not signed in.
Okay.
So you're calling the doctor first, however.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe just get a note to Ann. She's probably listening to check with the attorney's office. I know there was a medical issue, which is why he was appearing via Zoom, but we'll figure it out. All right. Very good.
Okay. I'm going to go grab the doctor and start with him. Oh, never mind. Thank you.
The defendant stood in court and refused to say a single word. With no plea entered, the judge stepped in, setting the tone for a case that was already turning tense.
Doctor, if you please come forward and be sworn.
Take a seat, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to affirm the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you? Thank you. See, state spell your first and last name.
My name is Michael Kaplan. First name spelled M-I-C-H-A-E-L. Last name is C-A-P-L-A-N.
All right. May inquire.
Thank you. We've got your name. What's your current employment?
My current employment is at the New York City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Manhattan.
Okay. And how were you employed back in 2021?
In 2021, I was employed at the University of Michigan Health System in the Department of Pathology and also as a deputy medical examiner for Washington County.
Okay. And speaking about that deputy medical examiner, how does one become a medical examiner? Why don't you lay for us some of your educational background?
Sure. So to become a medical examiner or a forensic pathologist, started with an undergraduate degree at Michigan State University. Science, which is basically science applied to matters of public health and public safety. After that, I went to medical school at University of Connecticut, gained my MD degree in 1987. I then did a 5-year residency in pathology, which is the study of how the human body reacts to disease. And that was from 1987 to 1992. From 1992 to 1993, I did a fellowship in forensic pathology, which again is pathology applied to matters of the public interest, public health, and public safety. That was at the New York City office of the chief medical examiner. And then I did 1 other year in pediatric pathology, which is the study of diseases of children, infants, and unborn fetuses. And that was at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center.
After the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, then do you then become a medical examiner or a forensic pathologist?
Yes, I was actually a forensic pathologist after finishing my fellowship in New York City in 1993.
Okay, all right, thank you. And at some point in time, though, you eventually come back to the University of Michigan.
That's
or
correct.
come to the University of Michigan. And how long are you at the University of Michigan?
I was at the University of Michigan for 5 years, 1993 to 1998.
And then obviously this happened in 2001, 2021. How do you come back in the 2020s back to the University of Michigan?
So after after working at the University of Michigan, then I took on several other jobs in forensic pathology. I worked at the state of Delaware as a medical examiner from 1998 to 2003. I worked at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston from 2004 to 2008 and from 2011 to 2014. Also did some private practice in pathology in Northern Michigan from 2008 to 2010. Then from 2014 to 2020, I was chief medical examiner in Suffolk County and Long Island. And then in November of 2020 was when I came back to the University of Michigan and Washtenaw County.
In all of that experience, have you ever had the occasion to do a post-mortem examination or an autopsy, as it might be called, or any other similar type of terminology in any of the other states?
Yes, I have.
And how many would you say that you've done over the course of your extensive career?
I can't give you an exact number, but I would estimate that somewhere between 2,500 and 3,500, somewhere in that range.
Any of those involving gunshot wounds?
Yes.
Have you ever testified in court previously?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever testified as an expert in the field of forensic pathology or something similar to that?
Yes, I have.
Okay. You've ever been qualified as an expert in that field? If I just didn't ask that question.
Yes, I have.
Okay. Your Honor, at this point in time, unless there's any objection or voir dire on the issue, I'm going to move to admit.
This moment is critical. The judge just certified Dr. Kaplan as an expert witness. That means his opinions don't carry normal weight. They carry legal authority. Jurors are allowed to trust his conclusions as specialized knowledge, not just personal opinion. Translation: what he says about the bullets, the wounds, and the cause of death can make or break this case. One expert versus one defendant's entire future.
His testimony on the basis of that of an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
So qualified.
Thank you. Turning your attention, while you were at the University of Michigan, did you perform an autopsy on a Daryl Banks on or about June 16, 2021? And just to remind you, Daryl is Deryl.
Yes, I performed that autopsy actually on June 17th.
Thank you. Can you walk us through the process that you perform when you perform a postmortem examination?
Yes. So when we perform an autopsy, and an autopsy comes from the Greek word, which means to see for yourself. So in an autopsy, a pathologist is seeing for themselves what diseases or injuries caused or contributed to the death. So the autopsy starts with what we call an external examination, which is an inspection of the entire surface of the body, including any clothing that may be present. It would involve, basic descriptions of height and weight, hair color, eye color, and then includes any distinctive skin lesions like moles, any distinctive scars, any tattoos or other identifying features, any items of therapeutic intervention such as tubes or lines or incisions, and then any injuries that are on the body. And that's the external examination.
And after the external examination, how does one proceed next?
The next part of the autopsy is what we call the internal examination. And that consists of a Y-shaped incision that's made starting from the top of the shoulders down to the midline, to the bottom of the breastbone, all the way down to the pubic bone, and then the skin of the soft tissue to fold it away. That exposes all the organs in the abdominal cavity, such as the stomach, the liver, the spleen, and then tools are used to take off the front of the rib cage, and that's going to expose the chest organs, such as the heart and the lungs and the windpipe. All of those organs are removed, they are weighed, and then they are examined for any injuries or diseases. Also including in the internal examination is the examination of the head and the neck. For the head, an incision is made in the bones behind the ears of the nostril. The incision, then you bend the scalp back and forward, and that exposes the skull cap. And then the circular saw is used to the skull, and that exposes the brain and its coverings. Again, the brain and the coverings remove bleeding and any other injuries or diseases. And then the last part of the autopsy is the neck, and that includes the muscles of the neck and the larynx, the voice box, and the trachea. And those are also.
What about tissues?
This is where trials become uncomfortable, but powerful. Autopsies turn violence into cold, clinical facts. No emotions, no stories, just damage, measurements, and truth. It's brutal to hear, but this is how prosecutors rebuild the final moments of someone's life piece by piece. And for the jury, these details aren't just medical. They become the roadmap to guilt or innocence.
In toxicology.
Yes. So part of an autopsy also is to remove samples of tissue to look at under the microscope or to preserve in case examination might be necessary later. And also part of standard autopsy is to obtain samples for toxicologic examination, and that can include blood, urine, liver tissue, and other tissues as is dictated by the case.
All right. And did you follow that process as it relates to that June 17th examination with Mr. Banks?
Yes, I did.
And what observations, starting with the external examination, what observations of any injuries or defects did you note during the external examination?
So I noted that Mr. Banks was a well-developed, well-nourished person. He looked consistent with his stated age of 35 years. He was about 5 feet 8 inches and weighed about 170 pounds. He had brown eyes. He had black hair up to about 1.5 inches. He had a connecting mustache and a beard. Really the only skin lesion he had was a small little mole on the bottom of the right thigh area. There were no scars or tattoos that I observed on him, at least anything distinctive. He had multiple items of therapeutic intervention, which included a tube in the mouth that went into the windpipe, the trachea. He also had a tube in the mouth that went into the stomach. He had vascular lines that were 2 in the groin. There was also one in the forearm and then one on the back of the left hand. He also had.
I'm going to stop you right there. Those tubes and lines that you described, those are something that's consistent with emergency medical treatment at a hospital.
Correct.
Okay.
Therapeutic intervention.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. All right, go on. So you noticed the tubes. Anything else that caught your attention?
Yeah, the other thing was that he also had a tube that was put in the chest, on the left side of the chest, at about the level of the nipple, and that was attached to a drain that contained about 1 liter of bloody fluid.
Okay.
And then there was also also an incision that was going across the chest from the midline all the way to the back of the armpit area. And then there was one other incision that was about 21 inches long that went down the middle of the abdomen.
Okay. Did you have any observations about whether he had suffered any injuries that led to those medical interventions?
Yes, I did.
And what were those?
I observed 3 gunshot wounds on his body. One was to the left side of the chest, a little bit behind the midline where the armpit is. That was about 21 inches below the top of the head. And that was an oval perforation that was consistent, with an entrance wound.
Mhm.
I also saw an exit wound that was on the, right flank region, which is below where the rib cage is. And that corresponded to the entrance wound on the left side of the chest. I also observed.
Hold on just a second. And Your Honor, for the record, he's pointing to his left side for the entrance wound and the right side for the exit wound. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I also observed an entrance wound on the side of the left thigh, that was, about 25 inches below the top of the head. And that was also an entrance wound. And then the other entrance wound that I observed was on the right side of the back, about 21 inches below the top of the head and about 2 inches to the right of the head.
Okay. When you say top of the head of
His head.
Of his head. Okay.
Those are anatomic landmarks that we use to designate the position.
Right. Okay. I wanted to make sure it wasn't the head of the hip or some other.
Yeah,
Okay.
the head of the skull.
All right. And do you know when you perform this autopsy examination, is it uncommon for officers to be present with you at the time that the examination is being performed?
No, it's not uncommon. It's common.
Do you recall there being a detective or officer with you during the examination, Mr. Banks? I know this was some time ago.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And I've previously furnished to you several pictures that were taken of that examination. Do you recall? You received those prior to today's testimony, correct?
Yes, I do.
I'm going to hand what's been marked as people's proposed exhibits 21, 22, and 23. Yep. You got them?
Mhm.
Okay. If I may approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Dr. Kaplan, I'm going to ask you to just review each one of those 21, 22, and 23, and let me know when you've reviewed them. Those pictures that you reviewed, are those pictures of Mr. Banks as he was at the forensic autopsy or at the forensic examination, the autopsy, the postmortem?
Yes, they are.
And I'm sorry, where did that postmortem take place at?
That postmortem examination took place at the University of Michigan Medicine Autopsy.
Okay, but that's not where he was treated at, obviously.
That's correct.
Do you remember what hospital he came from?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Offhand. I may have it in my report, but I don't recall.
It's not terribly.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, St. Joseph Mercy Hospital.
Now you might not know this, but Trinity Health now.
Okay, Trinity.
Okay. Thank you. Those pictures that you have in front of you, are those fair and accurate copies of Mr. Banks's body as you received it and examined it on the 17th of June, 2021?
Yes, they are. Thank you.
Your Honor, unless there's any objection or voir dire on each of those issues, I'm going to move to admit people's 21, 22, and 23.
Any objection or voir dire?
Your Honor, can I preserve my voir dire, my cross exam?
Yes.
Excellent.
So I will not admit them at this point.
Okay, I'll remove at a later time then, the court's permission. Okay. If you don't mind though, if you could referencing those pictures, can you show the judge each one of those wounds that you were talking about or explain to the court what each of those injuries are?
Yes.
And then just please reference, I've got each of those labeled. If you could just please reference the exhibit number.
So starting with exhibit 21 here.
Yes.
Okay, this is this is a profile. We're looking at it at the right side of the body of Mr. Darrell Banks with the identification of the Washington County number. This is the exit that's been sutured. That represents the exit of the entrance wound that I had described on the left side of the chest. This is a contusion or a bruise around that exit. From the force of the bullet. You see there's also a sutured incision in the midline of the abdomen. You can see a line in the right groin. And then there's also, you can see some lines coming from the mouth area, as well as a vascular line from the right elbow.
In exhibit, I'm sorry, did you go through exhibit 22 and 20?
Exhibit 22 is now we're looking at the left side of Mr. Eurobank's body, also the identifying case number. What we're seeing here is at the top, this is that left-sided incision. Okay,
Yes.
we call a left thoracotomy, opening up the chest, going from the midline all the way to the back of the armpit area. Immediately below that is where the chest tube was inserted.
Okay.
And at about the level of the nipple. And that's attached to a drain that has about a liter of bloody fluid. And then below this, right here, this is the entrance wound on the left side of the chest that was about 21 inches below the top of the head. And this was the one that took a path across the abdomen and was represented by the exit wounds in exhibit 21.
Your Honor, if you could ask the witness to hold so I can take a look at them, make sure we're talking about the
That's exhibit 21.
21. Yeah, got that.
And this is exhibit 22.
Thank you.
And then finally, exhibit 23, I think you still have in front of you as well.
Yeah.
This is completely
This is
the backside.
exhibit 23. I'll show you, Ron. So now what we're seeing, actually, we can see all three entrance wounds. We can see the entrance wound on the left side of the chest, which you saw in exhibit 22. We can now see the entrance wound on the outer margin of the lateral part of the upper buttock region. And we can now see the entrance wound on the lower right side of the back.
Got it. Okay.
Your Honor, could the witness hold the picture up and point at what you just testified?
Yes. So this is the entrance wound on the left side of the chest, slightly behind the armpit region. This is the entrance wound on the outer margin of the left buttock. And this is the entrance wound on the right side of the lower back.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. You've made your external examination. I assume then you did the internal examination.
Yes, I did.
And when you did the internal examination, did you find any evidence of damage, obviously, to the organs and body of Mr. Banks?
Yes, I found evidence of both injury and therapeutic.
Okay. What types of injuries were you able to sustain happen to the inside of Mr. Banks?
So the injury, the gunshot wound to the left side of the chest took a path through the skin and the soft tissues. It went into the space between the left ninth and the 10th rib. Then it went into the left chest cavity below the lung. It went through the diaphragm, which is the muscle that separates the chest and abdominal cavities, important muscle for breathing. And then it went into the abdominal cavity and went across the abdominal cavity, injured organs on the left side of the abdomen, spleen. It injured the stomach. It injured the first part of the small intestine called the duodenum. It injured an important artery that supplies blood to the duodenum called the gastroduodenal artery. And then it went across the abdomen and then exited on the flank region, which is below the rib cage on the right side of the body.
I'm sorry, you said that it went through. You said that it damaged several organs. You said that it went through the diaphragm, though. Is that to say that it damaged the diaphragm as well?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Okay.
So that was the path that it took.
Probably a good point in time for me to ask the difference between a penetrating versus a perforating injury, if there's a difference.
Yes.
If you could explain that.
Sure. So we use the term penetrating versus perforating to distinguish whether if a wound perforates the body, that means that the bullet or projectile passed through the entire body, also what we call a through and through.
Through and through.
Penetrating is when the bullet enters the body but does not leave the body.
Okay.
So a bullet or fragments of the body.
So we saw one perforating injury enter from the left side and exit out the right side, the through and through. But you also described that there were 2 other bullet holes. Can you tell me about what damage, if any, those wounds had inflicted upon Mr. Banks?
Do you want me to finish describing the injury on the first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I thought you had already gone through it all.
So that was associated with the wounds that first wound was associated with repairs of those perforations in the stomach.
Yeah.
And the small intestine, as well as ligation, meaning constriction of the artery, that gastroduodenal artery. There was also approximately 2 liters of blood that had been evacuated from the left chest cavity.
And how significant is you said that there was a liter that had, the one tube had drained into about a liter, and then now 2 liters. How significant is that in terms of our body mass of general humans? Is that a significant amount of blood?
Yeah, that's very significant. That's a life-threatening amount of blood loss.
Okay. All right. So now we've talked about the through and through, the damage that it's inflicted, and how evidence of repair. What about the 2 other injuries, the left buttock versus the mid back?
Yes. So the wound on the left buttock was right on the lateral border of the buttock. It was a little bit lower than the chest wound. It was about 25 inches below the top of the head, and that wound took a path through the skin and soft tissues and what we call the gluteal muscles, the buttock muscles. It then went through the iliac bone, and then went into the front cavity of the hip bone called the iliac fossa, and then that took a path from left to right and ended up in the pelvic region, where it also injured the bottom part of the colon, the sigmoid colon, as well as the bladder. And that's where I recovered one of the bullets, which was a jacket bullet.
Okay, and well, I'll come to that later. That's the wound from the left buttock.
That's correct.
Okay. What about? I know that you mentioned that's the first wound, but let's be clear. You can't tell which wound happened in what sequence. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. When we give numbers to bullets, that those are for organization reference points. There's no reference to a chronologic sequence there.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. So let's talk about the final wound, if we're going to talk about the mid back, if I can call it that.
Yes. So what's listed as gunshot wound number 3 in my autopsy report is the wound to the right side of the lower back. This was about it was approximately just to about 22 inches below the top of the head and about 2 inches to the right of the midline. This wound took a path through the skin and the soft tissues and connective tissue that we call the thoracolumbar fascia, just a fancy name for the deep connective tissue. It then went through the 12th rib, and then injured the kidney. It then injured the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. And then it grazed the bottom inferior surface of the right lobe of the liver, but did not exit the body.
So you need to turn around. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Doug.
You were talking about the liver?
Yes. So I was describing the path of, through the right 12th rib, the kidney, the first part of the large intestine, the cecum, the bottom of the liver, and then I recovered that bullet in the soft tissues of the abdomen, slightly below the rib cage. Also a jacketed.
A jacketed bullet. And that's to say that at that point in time, the core and the jacket would still all be relatively intact.
That's correct.
Okay.
And also to emphasize that at that time, the right kidney was not there anymore. It had been removed through surgical intervention, but the path that took was directly in the anatomic region of the right kidney would be.
I assume that when you're performing the examination, you also have some form of records of what interventions were given to the decedent from the hospital.
Yes, we do.
And so that would alert you that he had already had his kidney removed.
Correct.
Okay,
In addition to the midline decision,
right.
yeah, knowing that something, there's at least an exploration.
Would you have taken X-rays of Mr. Banks at the morgue?
Yes, I would.
Okay, I'm going to approach with what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 27. This is the X-ray picture.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
If I may.
Mark is 27.
Yep, I'm skipping.
Approach.
I'm skipping ahead.
I realize that.
I figured this might come out a little cleaner than I anticipated. I've marked that as People's Proposed Exhibit 27. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what's that a picture of?
This is an X-ray showing the spine, the femoral column, femur bone, and also showing two bullets that represent the bullets that I recovered from Mr. Banks' body.
Thank you. I'm going to move to admit unless there's any objection or voir dire.
I'll stay here.
Okay. Okay, and exactly that. It is what it is. It's where you had described that near the entrances and the of each of those other injuries.
Now,
Okay.
just to clarify, this is a lateral. So this is showing where it is front to back. It's not showing where it is horizontal or the front. It's not showing left to right. It's showing front to back.
Great, thank you. And then finally, you said that you recovered each of those bullets.
I did.
Thank you. I'm going to approach with what's been marked as People's 24. And then this is 25. If I may approach?
You may.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Kaplan, I've handed you People's Proposed Exhibits 24 and 25. Do you recall each of those items?
Yes, I do.
I don't anticipate that you could maybe even be able to identify which came from which part, but are those the two bullets that you were able to recover out of Mr. Banks?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and those are fair and accurate copies of the or photos of those bullets that were recovered.
Yes, they are. They're identified by the Washington County Medical Examiner number 81210727.
Okay, I'm going to move to admit. I imagine that there's probably going to be the same reservation of voir dire.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And those are as they were attached or found inside of Mr. Banks.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Anything that came back in terms of tissue samples or toxicology that had any bearing on the cause of death as it relates to Mr. Banks?
I took samples of the gunshot wounds, and they showed the characteristic findings that you would see from a gunshot wound, which is essentially an abrasion or scraping of the skin, and the heat, which causes damage to the skin layer, and also tissues that were submitted for blood and other tissues. We received results from that.
Okay. Ultimately, what did you feel was the cause, or were you able to come to a conclusion about the cause of death to Mr. Banks?
I was.
And what was that?
In my opinion, the cause of Mr. Banks' death was complications of multiple gunshots.
Can you explain in those complications, essentially, how did the gunshot wounds cause Mr. Banks to pass away?
In my opinion, those gunshot wounds caused Mr. Banks to pass away from blood loss, putting him into what we call hemorrhagic or hypovolemic shock. The amount of for his weight, which was 170 pounds, there's basically an adult has, the way that you calculate a person's blood volume is there's about a little over 2 ounces, 70 milliliters for every kilogram. So for his body weight, his blood volume was a little over 5,400 milliliters. Once you lose at least a third of that blood volume rapidly, that is sufficient to put you into hemorrhagic shock. And the amount
that was removed at operation, even that alone, the 2,002 liters would be about 37%. And that's not including the, the other liter that was in the drain. So, so in my opinion, he died from complications of blood loss, which put him into hypothermic shock, and despite efforts to sustain him, and he was given tremendous amounts of blood products, what was called the massive transfusion protocol. He was given 29 units of red blood cells. He was given
Let that sink in. Nearly 30 units of blood. Emergency surgery. Every modern medical tool available, and it still wasn't enough. Legally, this matters because it confirms causation. The gunshots directly caused the death. Without that link, murder charges collapse. With it, the case becomes deadly serious. One trigger pull can echo through an entire courtroom years later.
24 units of fresh frozen plasma, which is the plasma without the cells.
Sure.
He was given platelets to help his clotting. He was given intravenous fluid for blood pressure, and also a cell saver, which is a way to, to retain or save the blood that was lost. Even despite all of those interventions, he was not able to survive.
Is there any particular one, or is it the combination of all three gunshot wounds that would have ultimately been fatal? I mean, I guess suppose one would have been fatal depending on the interventions, but given the interventions that he did receive, can you make an opinion as to whether it was one or the combination thereof?
In my opinion, it was a combination, and I think the wounds to the left side of the chest and the right side of the back likely played the greatest role of loss. But the wound to the bottom also did play some role.
One question that I had is you were able to describe for us the entry wound versus the exit wound. Can you tell us how are you able to distinguish between the entrance wound and the exit wound?
Yes. So the way that we distinguish between an entrance wound and an exit wound is based on when a bullet strikes, the skin. What it does is it has a characteristic abrasion, which is when it scrapes the skin. And so an entrance wound typically is abraded. If the nose of that bullet strikes the skin, then it's usually going to be a round or an oval perforation. But it's the abrasion, it's the scraping of the skin, which is the most characteristic feature of an entrance wound. In an exit wound, the bullet is coming out, it's everting or separating the skin. So it's going to lacerate the skin, but it's not going to scrape it. And so characteristic of an exit wound, as was in this case, was that it's a perforation, it was more of a slit, linear, and was not abraded.
Okay, all right. You've explained to us your conclusion about the cause of death. What about, were you able to come to an opinion about the manner of death?
Yes, sir.
And what was the manner of death in your opinion?
In my opinion, the manner of death was homicide.
Were you able to detail all of your findings in a medical examiner's report?
Yes, I was.
And have you had a chance to review that before court today?
Yes, I have.
I'm going to approach this as marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 26. You said you reviewed that. Dr. Kaplan, if you don't mind just reviewing that ever so briefly, let me know when you're done. Okay. Is that a fair and accurate copy of the post-examination report that you prepared back in 2021?
Yes.
Okay.
And it also includes the toxicology report from the reference laboratory.
Thank you. Regarding the toxicology, is there any impact that would have had on your findings regarding the cause of death or manner of death?
No, not in my findings.
Excellent. At this point in time, Your Honor, I'm going to move to admit the medical examiner's report as Exhibit 26.
Cedric Simpson.
Yes. And then finally, what, if anything, do you recall you did with those bullets that you had recovered from Mr. Banks?
As I documented in my autopsy report, I submitted them directly to, at that time, Detective Rob.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions for you. Obviously, we have to admit the exhibits officially.
We'll get to them.
Yep.
Cross-examination.
Good morning, Doctor. Nice to see you again. Did you have anybody assisting you in this autopsy?
Yes, we're always assisted with that.
Okay. These are people that use the saw that you described and things like that.
Yeah, they're the autopsy assistants, and they help eviscerate, remove the organs, use the circular saw,
All those type of instruments. Was there any medical people assisting you on this?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Now, I've looked at the pictures, I've listened to your testimony, so I want to ask you some questions. You can't say to have medical certainty which wound came first. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there anything to indicate that there was a long pause between the different wounds that you looked at? Or were they all pretty, like one after another?
Yeah, based on the naked eye, the gross appearance and the microscopic appearance of those wounds, there's nothing to indicate that there was a long separation, and if you mean long, like hours.
I noticed in your report there's no soot or stippling found.
That's correct.
Could you explain what soot is?
Sure. So soot is the term that we use for completely burned gunpowder. And you would expect to see soot when the range of fire between the muzzle of the gun and the skin is approximately, is usually a foot or less. The caveat there, though, is if there's clothing interposed, then the soot may all be deposited on the clothing, not on the skin.
Did you find any soot on the clothing?
The only clothing that we had available to examine were the Nike sweatpants, and I did not see any soot.
Did you find any soot on the body?
I did not find soot on the body.
Stippling, could you explain that?
Sure. So stippling is the term that we use when there's incompletely burned or unburned gunpowder. That has a little bit more aerodynamic stability, so that can travel a little bit longer, a little further. I'm sorry. You can expect to see stippling up to about 3.5 to 4 feet from the muzzle of the weapon to the skin. Although that's just an estimate, you would actually have to test fire the weapons with that bullet to get it higher.
Did you find any stippling on the body?
I did not.
Did you find any stippling in what you termed I believe that just sounds like workout pants or something like that?
Yeah, sweatpants.
Sweatpants.
I did not.
So because you found no stippling, whoever fired that bullet or bullets into this gentleman had to be at least 3.5, 4 feet away, approximately. It wouldn't be closer, let's put it that way.
I can't agree completely with that, and the reason I'm saying that is that he was shot through clothing. So unless you did an examination on the clothing for the range of fire, that's how I would be able to make it.
And that's why you say the range was indeterminate
That's correct.
on all 3 shots.
That's correct.
So there's nothing to say, for instance, is there anything in your protocol and your examination that shows that any of these rounds were, I'm trying to find a way to phrase it, were more than 6 feet away?
No.
There's nothing. So saying it was 6 feet away would not be wrong.
It wouldn't be wrong, it would be a possibility.
Okay. Strong possibility, given what you see on the wounds?
No, I can't qualify the
Okay.
extent possible.
All right, but a possibility. 20 feet away, not possible. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't.
You can't agree. So in other words, you cannot tell at all what the distance, except it wasn't up close because you didn't find any stippling or soot on the body. Might have been on the clothes, but we don't know. What would account for the person who was shot like this to drive approximately 2 miles to I call it St. Joe still, by the way, to St. Joe's Hospital?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your questions here.
What would cause a person, there's some evidence that this person who was shot drove from a restaurant called Ichiban to St. Joe's Hospital. I'm estimating the distance at no more than 2 miles.
Well, if I'm understanding your question right, you're asking what made this capable for him to do?
Exactly.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So one of the things that that is not always appreciated is that even with life-threatening or fatal injuries, unless you are shot in a way that becomes immediately incapacitated, meaning in the brainstem of the spinal cord, the human body has the ability to do a tremendous act. That's related to our sympathetic nervous system.
All right.
Our sympathetic involuntary nervous system is what preserves our blood pressure and our heart rate, even in situations of blood loss. And so it has been well documented that even people shot, in major blood vessels such as the aorta or the venous cave, the major artery vein, have been shown to be capable to run multiple city blocks, to bike, to drive, many volitional purposes.
I read through the report several times, and I never came across the word glass fragments. Am I correct in that? None were found?
That is correct.
And fiber. I was looking for fiber. The fibers that, for instance, would be in a car seat.
Correct.
No fibers, right?
I didn't recall seeing it anywhere.
You also mentioned that the left index finger had a possible wound on it.
Correct.
Were you able to determine was in fact that was a wound from a bullet or anything like that?
In my opinion, that was a probable, what I call a superficially penetrating, meaning that it's likely that that was a bullet that just impacted the skin. This was on the left index finger in what we call the middle families, okay, of the three, and it caused a laceration or tear. So it's likely that produced an injury on the back of the finger, but did not actually enter the body.
Would the fact that it's on the left hand in the wound, I'm going to refer to picture number 1, the side picture. I think it's 2/1/21.
This means you read exhibit 22.
This one.
Well, I think he's talking exhibit 21.
That's 21.
That's 21. That's the right side of Mr. Banks' body.
No, that's an exit wound, correct?
That's correct. It's not showing the exit wound in this picture because there's still a suture on it.
Okay. So the round that entered his left side exited his right side. Do I have it correct?
That's correct.
It's pretty much straightforward, but a little bit down.
Yes, it was left to right. It was slightly back to front and slightly down.
Would that indicate that the person who shot this gentleman, would be, let's say, I'm the driver of the car. That person would have to be to my left.
Yes, I would agree.
And we don't know how far away to the left, but definitely to the left.
I'm sorry, I'm assuming that in this hypothetical, Mr. Vincent is the person who is shot.
I thought I said that at the beginning.
You said the driver.
The driver, the person who shot.
Yes, with that hypothetical, yes, I agree.
And we don't know how far away.
Now the chess match begins. The defense isn't denying the wounds, they're shaping the story of how it happened. Distance, angles, positioning, accident or intent. These details decide whether this becomes murder or something lesser. Same bullets, same death, completely different legal outcome. This is where science quietly battles storytelling.
The second shot, where did that enter?
That entered on the outer margin of the left buttock area. About 25 inches below the top of his head.
And where did it exit?
That did not exit.
Okay, so on the left, would that coincide, I'm asking you your medical opinion, with somebody bending over like so? Record should reflect I'm bending over to my right, exposing my left buttock.
You'd have to show me,
You have the podium in front.
a better image. Yeah, I can't.
Your Honor, for the record, Mr. Vincent is,
What would help me, would be if you turn to show your left buttock facing me.
Assuming I'm behind the wheel.
It's possible that is one possible position. However, that's only one of many potential.
Give me another example then.
Well, I could give you any number. If you have to give me an example, I can tell you.
I just gave you an example. Is there anything wrong with the example I gave you?
No, but my point is that is one of many potentially infinite possibilities of positions. All I can do is you give me a position of the victim and the shooter, and I can tell you whether that wound path is consistent with that.
All right. But you would agree with me where the entrance wound is on the left, I'm gonna call the left buttock area. The example I gave, bending over to my right side, exposing my left buttock, that's consistent with the wound path.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Thank you. Again, the range is indeterminate and no soot or stippling.
That's correct.
The third entrance wound, where was that at?
The third entrance wound was on the right side of the lower back, about 22 inches below the top of Mr. Banks' head, and about 2 inches to the right of his midline.
When the entrance came on the right side, right upper buttock, is that fair?
No, it was the back. It was above the buttock.
Above. Would that be consistent with somebody, again, bending over, that I don't want to illustrate it again, but me bending over on the right side, exposing my back and my left
Not
foot.
necessarily bending over, no.
Okay. What would that be consistent of? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, that would be more consistent with him rotating rather than bending over.
So, in other words,
Rotating, in other words, going from rotating so in a clockwise fashion, exposing the right side of his back.
so if I'm the driver of the car and I rotate like that,
Clockwise.
as if to say, pick something up off the seat of the car, that sort of thing?
I don't know what the activity is, but the rotation.
No, but would that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
and Your Honor, for the record, if he was in the driver's seat, it would have been rotating towards the passenger seat.
Would the court give me a couple of minutes to look through my notes?
Fine.
You know what happened to Mr. Banks' clothing other than the sweatpants?
I do not.
Would you consider I'm just talking from some of the experiences I've had. The clothing at a medical examiner at the autopsy room, It's one of the first things I've noticed medical examiners look at, the clothing. Is that a fair statement? Would that be protocol?
I'm not gonna say it was the one, the first, it's the first, if they're wearing the clothing, then by definition, it has to be one of the first things, because in an external examination.
Right.
First.
What happens if the clothing's not on? Because in this case, it looks like it was every effort St. Joe's could make to keep him alive. So they took the clothing. Do you know what happened to that clothing?
I don't.
Do you think that clothing would help you in your, or assist you in making your findings?
It would potentially help with the range of fire.
Okay. And because that clothing's lost or gone, you can't have it assist you in a range of fire. Is that correct? Well, you never had access to it.
What I had access to was the
Sweatpants. Did anybody tell you what happened to those clothes?
Not that I recall.
If so, you'd have put that in your report, correct?
Yes, it would have been submitted
Yeah.
evidence.
And the first bullet is the 10th rib. That's the rib you kind of can barely feel.
It raised the 10th rib. It actually went into the space between the 9th and the 10th.
10th, okay. With all these wounds that you've looked at, all three of them, would it suggest that the person who was closest to Mr. Banks is behind the wheel of a car, somebody to his left, would you agree with me, fired those bullets into him?
Yes, I believe you asked that before.
And you agree with that? Would you also agree that that person had to be the closest person to him?
No, I don't agree with that.
You don't know.
I don't know who else was there or how close they were there. No idea.
All right. And that's because you can't, it's indeterminate distance.
Well, it's indeterminate for the reasons that I explained.
Yeah, no clothing and all that sort of thing. I understand
I'm not
that.
seeing evidence of close range fire, but I can't rule out that possibility.
Does it appear to be, to you, was it close range firing?
I can't apply to that for the reasons I've explained.
Yeah, but would you, if I said the firing was within 6 feet, would you dispute that?
Not at all.
And would you agree with me that all three entrance wounds came to somebody to his immediate left? I'm not saying how far left, but to his left side. All the.
I think in this circumstance, yes, I agree with that.
So, again, if somebody shot through a window, back window of a car, that would not factor in those wounds, because the wounds had to come from the left side, not the back side of the car. Am I making sense in that
Yeah,
question?
it's theoretically possible that if somebody shot from the back, that it could have involved the right side of the back. If that's theoretically possible.
Was more likely on the left side, correct?
Given the circumstances that have been explained to me, yes, it's well.
All right. I think I'm almost done, okay? You know, if any tests were run on those bullets other than you retrieving them and giving them to Detective Roth?
I do know.
Did the therapeutic interfere with your findings at all?
I'm sorry,
The therapeutic efforts by the hospital, by St. Joe's, did that interfere with your exam?
It obviously altered the exam, but in combination of those records with my autopsy, I felt I was able to reasonably determine the course and the associated injuries of all three.
To a medical certainty?
Yes.
Doctor, at this time, I have no further questions and have a safe trip back to New York.
Any redirect?
I just wanted to, was there any issues regarding the exhibits that
I will ask.
No objection.
Is there any redirect?
No.
Sorry, Your Honor, interrupt.
Any objection to the admission, Mr. Vincent, of 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27?
None, Your Honor.
Those exhibits are admitted.
Thank you. I don't have any.
Doctor, you may step in. Safe travels.
Did Mr. Coleman ever log on?
Did not, I don't know. We don't have him. We don't have him in, and I don't know if you contacted. I'll come out and talk to your mom. All right,
Your Honor,
court's gonna stand in recess. Are you gonna call her?
so he's not here. She is here,
I know
she
she's
wants-
here.
Yep.
Are you going to call her?
not without her attorney here, and I'm prepared to move forward. I'm prepared to,
Are you going, is your intent to call her? That is my question.
no.
All right.
No.
Mr. Vincent?
No, I'm not.
You're not calling anybody. All right, very good. All right. Then if you have no other witnesses,
No other witnesses.
any witnesses for the defense?
No.
All right. Motion.
Your Honor, at this point in time, I'm going to motion to bind the defendant over on the charges contained in the complaint. I think there are 3 counts: open murder, carrying a concealed weapon, and felony firearm.
Response.
This charge is the open murder charge. I don't think there's been any evidence of premeditation or deliberation by whoever fired.
And this is the turning point. The judge isn't deciding guilt today, only whether there's enough evidence to move forward. Being bound over means the defendant now faces a full murder trial in higher court. The real battle is just beginning. No verdict yet, but the door to life-changing consequences just swung wide open. Justice in America doesn't arrive suddenly, it moves step by step, hearing by hearing.
Because there's not. We can make assumptions maybe, but there's just no evidence to show premeditation or deliberation. And I'm asking for, I'm going to have other comments, but I did not hear or see anything along those lines.
As to premeditation. Well, I think the court would bind over on open murder. And so I'm not sure that I would have to have that element per se.
I would agree with the court. The charge of open murder doesn't require.
But part of open murder is first degree and second degree.
Well, certainly that can be argued, but for the purposes of preliminary examination, I would be binding over on the specific charge unless that's what the people were putting forth. But at this point, it's an open murder charge.
Then going through the witnesses, Jay Thomas was in the car with Mr. Banks. And she testified that there was people on two people, one on the driver's side, one on the passenger side. All evidence shows the video and from other discussions, there was nobody on the passenger side. I don't know what it does to her credibility or powers of observation. Certainly, that's called into question. Next, Mr. Mullins testified that he was approximately, I believe, what, 6 feet away from the vehicle. When asked by Mr. Emmons, "You have a gun on you," Your Honor stopped everything and had him get an attorney. And that question never was answered. In fact, I think there was a considerable pause while an attorney was found and came in to advise Mr. Mullins. Kathy Gray testified that virtually he didn't see the car, didn't see anything. And she said the prosecutor told her what to say. Mr. Mullins said the prosecutor basically told him what to say, and if he didn't say what they wanted him to say, he was not going to see his child's birthday, which was basically the next day. My cross-exam, he admitted that. The only reason he said what he said under the investigative subpoena was a threat, not seeing his child and threat of being locked up.
Well, was the threat of charges
But yeah,
for failing to comply with an investigative subpoena.
yes. And the threat they went out to see the birthday of his child the next day. Nobody has put my client with a gun. And Miss Gray was asked when he got in the car, "Did you see a gun?" No. "Did you ever see a gun before?" No. Nobody put a gun in my client's hand. Nobody's sure where my client was standing. One time, we got a testimony, as I mentioned before, that he was on the passenger side, on the passenger side. Then we got another testimony, we don't know where he is. My question is what proofs do they have that my client did any type of shooting at all or had a revolver in his hands? The person closest to the deceased, and I asked the doctor, I used the term 6 feet away, because I believe Mr. Mullen, that was a distance that he gave, 6 feet away. And the person closest to him, it appears from the testimony, is the person who shot him. Let the court give me a minute, I'm trying to make sure I got everything out of my notes.
Everyone expected an answer, but the defendant stayed silent. In that moment, the judge made the call that would carry this case forward.
The disappearance of his clothing. I'm not saying what happened to it, I don't know, but it wasn't there, and clearly it would have helped with the distance. And that crucial piece of evidence somehow was lost or whatever, thrown out, I have no idea. So again, I'm asking for this case to be dismissed, Your Honor.
Response.
Your Honor, I think the most direct evidence is Jade Thomas, who testified, and she testified here in court. I can see she said that there was one person on the passenger side of the car, another person on the driver's side of the car. And that's inconsistent with what we saw in the video. But we saw the video, and we saw the two men approach the driver's side of the car. Ms. Thomas directly said that the defendant was the one who fired the shots into the vehicle. She identified him here in court. She said he was the shooter. And that's the most direct evidence that there was. Obviously, her testimony was the evidence that there was a shooting. Dr. Kaplan testified that he suffered from 3 different gunshot wounds, 1 penetrating wound, that those bullets recovered. Obviously, he could not really estimate as to what the distance was, which I would agree would be helpful, but is not ultimately grounds for the case to not be found over. But Dr. Kaplan was clear in his testimony, several shots. We also heard from Officer Spacky, formerly Boatwright, who testified that when the car was brought back to Pittsfield Township Police Department, we saw all the different bullet holes that were found throughout the vehicle, showing that several shots were fired into the vehicle before it was able to leave and make its way remarkably back to St. Joe, where Mr. Banks would ultimately expire. I think that the evidence is sufficient. I believe that the evidence is sufficient to find the defendant over on the charges.
Court having listed testimony in this case, and I don't think that there were any undue threats, or at least they've not been shown to the court, which would alter the testimony is given to the court. Clearly, the testimony of Ms. Thomas, that coupled with the gunshots at the scene and also the ultimate demise of Mr. Banks, clearly indicate to the court that the people have sustained their burden of showing that this defendant should be bound over in the charge of homicide or open murder. The court does believe that as to each and every one of those elements necessary at preliminary examination, the people have indeed sustained their burden. Likewise with counts 2 and 3, the court does believe that the testimony in this case, taken as a whole, that the people have indeed sustained their burden and would therefore bind the defendant over also on counts 2 and 3. Therefore, the defendant is bound over on all 3 counts.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I don't have a copy of the information, so if I can approach to sign.
One moment. As to the arraignment on the information,
My client stands mute to the charge, Your Honor.
defendant have away from a reading standing mute to all counts. Court will enter a not guilty plea as to all 3 counts. Pre-trial in this matter will be set for
March 9th, 30 before judgment.
March 9th, 2026, 1:30 before Judge Hammoud. Bond will continue as denied.
If I may approach.
It to you, Mr. Evans.
Oh, okay.